we couldn't paint a complete picture of the response to the spiking of the Epstein files without giving you Ben Shapiro's perspective. Obviously, that would be journalistic malpractice. So he thinks all good. This is exactly what he was looking for. What do you know? And to nobody's surprise, writes Texan AF, Ben Shapiro believes the DOJ and FBI's conclusion about Epstein and encourages his viewers to do the same.
And the problem is this. People who never hedged their bets, people who never at any point suggested to you that they don't have data to back up the speculation, that the speculation was in and of itself the conclusion that if you speculate without evidence, that amounts to an actual conclusion to an investigation, they're going to be very upset today because it turns out that the DOJ and the FBI have concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and died by suicide, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, again, does this put to bed like all inquiries? Of course not. People can continue to speculate as much as they want. And I think there's still open questions here regarding how did Epstein make his money? Right, that's a very serious open question. And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are telling you, I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration,
who could
people
doubt
you
that
elected
crew?
and put into these positions to get you the truth on this matter, are telling you that he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered. He did not keep a client list. And he did not blackmail powerful figures.
Okay, this would be like us coming on the air. Yeah. This would be like us coming on the air and saying, listen, guys, AOC said Kamala is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. AOC said that. So come on.
Come on.
Do we believe our lying eyes or do we believe AOC?
And unlike the crew he just named, she's actually elected.
Right. She's actually elected. That's right. That's right. It would be like, that's what that sounds like. That's what, if we came on and said that to you at the DNC convention, would you continue to take us seriously, or would you say, oh, I know what this is, I'll find someone else to go watch? I mean, that's literally what he's saying here.
Okay, right. That is the thing that they are saying, not I. They are saying this. If you're willing to throw that over and claim they're lying, then I'd like to see you present your evidence that they are in fact lying. Because I know Dan. I don't think that Dan Bongino is lying to me.
Oh, I know him. He's a square guy. He's a nice guy. It's interesting.
I know Kash Patel a little bit. I don't think Kash Patel is lying to me. I don't think these people are lying to me. Which means that if somebody else continues to claim that they're lying, they ought to provide their evidence at this point.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to provide you.
No, because everybody has access to FBI files.
Exactly.
That's a meaningful challenge.
I'd be happy to oblige Ben Shapiro and provide some, at least, circumstantial evidence, first, that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel might in fact be lying, might in fact have reason to lie about this. And second, that there is actually evidence of a blackmail ring that exists, whether or not Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, or Kash Patel is willing to acknowledge it. So first, here's Dan Bongino saying to Tim Pool a story about how he was told Epstein was an intelligence asset for a country in the Middle East. What country could that have been?
A year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. It says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know, but
I don't know.
And this is when Tim jumps in and says, you know what? It doesn't matter what country we're talking about, right?
Doesn't matter.
This person, who's a very, very good reporter, aces, right, swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff.
Epstein is a very common last name among several Middle Eastern countries. Epstein is a very common name, in Iran. in Syria and Iraq. So, it could be any one of those. Maybe Israel, but, we don't have any reason to think that Epstein may be connected with Israel. And he does have reason to lie about that, even though he has it on good authority that Epstein is a blackmail agent involved with some Middle Eastern country. Here is Dan Bongino when asked what cause is dear to your heart.
What cause is dear to your heart?
Cause is dear to my Israel, defense of Israel.
What is number one?
Okay, so first thing that comes to mind, defense of Israel. Maybe that's that Middle Eastern country he wouldn't disclose.
You
Here's Cash
remember
Patel.
we had some people who should have known better, who got really upset when we kept pointing out the crazy eyes Cash Patel was not anyone to put your faith in.
Yeah, no, people
Remember,
got
a
very
lot of
offended
people
by
got
that.
very offended by that
Yeah,
idea.
a lot of people really were upset that we didn't give him the chance he deserves. All right, well, here we are, 6 months later. Cash Patel. Let's take a look because Shapiro knows Cash Patel. He doesn't think Cash Patel would lie for Israel. Well, I mean, Shapiro probably thinks that's a testament to his character that he would lie for Israel. But here he is saying how we don't do enough to prioritize Israel.
Off the machinery that feeds money into Iran. We will no longer have 100 hostages still in captivity, Israeli and American and otherwise, by Hamas and Iran's Hezbollah mercenary forces. We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel and bring home Israelis and make sure we stand by our number one ally in Israel.
Right. So why would either of those two schmucks lie for Israel? Why? I mean, after all, Ben Shapiro knows him. Do you think Ben Shapiro would cavort with people who would lie for Israel?
Would Ben Shapiro lie for Israel?
Would Ben
Never.
Shapiro? Would I lie for Israel? It's
No,
Ben Shapiro
of
you're
course
talking
not.
about here. All right, so let's look at some more evidence here. Epstein met the Prime Minister of Israel 36 times in 4 years. He even flew to New York and sneaked into Jeffrey Epstein's house. Why would Israel's head of state do that? Trump, who has been Israel's dutiful little bitch, says no reason. Definitely not blackmail. There he is. So there is the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, going into Jeffrey Epstein's, place of residence. Now, Jeffrey Epstein passed away of tragic suicide, obviously.
Natural causes.
He obviously took his own life before COVID hit. So, which means that mask he's wearing was not so that he would not die of COVID. That mask he was wearing so no one would see him going into Epstein's house, which he did 36 times in 4 years. And if you don't believe the Daily Mail, if you think that's junk, here's one of the papers of record in Israel, Times of Israel, saying Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times and flew on the private plane. So again, this is some evidence, right? You can't say there's no evidence. This is evidence. How about this one? Whitney Webb's report, an ex-spy for Israel who worked with Robert Maxwell, not coincidentally, two Maxwells involved. This was Ghislaine Maxwell's father, has claimed that Maxwell not only recruited Epstein for Israeli intel, but that he and Ghislaine ran their sex blackmail op for Israeli military intelligence. There's more. Thread on my latest. For the interest of time, we're not going to read the article. We'll read a couple tweets. Interview with ex-spy was made by Narrative, so full credit to them. Ex-spy's claim bolsters info I obtained that money from the sales of illicit promise software by Robert Maxwell and E. Bryan was used to start Epstein's sex trafficking op. Ex-spy said that Maxwell recruited Epstein because Epstein and Ghislaine were dating, and Maxwell wanted to help set them up and get them, in the family business. Thus, most likely it was Maxwell, not Bryan, who funneled promise money to Epstein to start the op. Ex-spy doesn't give the year Maxwell introduced him to Epstein, but Epstein came pre-approved by Israeli military intel per Maxwell. If this took place between 83 and 85, the head of military intel for Israel was Ehud Barak, who was very close to Epstein and remained very close to Epstein until basically the end. The question then becomes, can this ex-spy be trusted? I discuss his past at length in my report, but his info on his time in Israeli military intel was used by Cy Hirsch, Bob Perry, and in Inslaw litigation, so good enough for me. Also, when he was set to be interviewed by Bob Perry in 2012, his house was firebombed. Seems like someone didn't want him to make it to that interview. And of course, we have this. Jeffrey Epstein victim's diary contradicts FBI blackmail claims. Virginia Giuffre said the sex offender taped her being abused by other men But an investigation found there was no evidence that he blackmailed individuals. So he just taped her being abused by other men and did nothing with that, despite all the evidence that we now are seeing. Virginia Giuffre, by the way, does that name ring a bell? Oh, yeah, she's the woman who was run off the road by a speeding school bus and then deleted herself 3 weeks later. That was a few months ago before the dropping of this case. Got to look at that through a different lens now. Do you not? Could that have been tying up some loose ends?
Almost looks like tying up loose ends, yeah.
Yep.
Like they knew they were going to do this, and they were trying to shut down anyone who could very credibly contradict their claims.
Exactly. So is any of this proof? No, but it's undeniably evidence of a kind. You know whose job it is to prove it? The FBI and the DOJ, which is what they promised they were going to do. That's why a lot of people voted for them, and now they're not doing it. And that's why people are upset. And Shapiro's take is, well, case closed. Hey, I mean, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, I know those guys. They love Israel. They wouldn't lie. I mean, pretty laughable.
No, look, when you
so
look
he's not
at
even
this,
trying. I mean, it's kind of on brand for him, you know?
Yeah. The idea, I understand, man, and a new administration comes in, especially one as, bellicose as this one, making these claims that they're going to clean up Washington. I can understand getting caught up in the mood of that, but not if you're paying any kind of attention. Like, it's not like, oh, wow, these people seemed so plausible. How on earth could this have happened?
Right.
You had freaking crazy eyes Kash Patel, who literally wrote a children's book in which he is a wizard protecting King Donald. This is the person that you put your faith in to go and clean up Washington. Tulsi Gabbard, who literally called Donald Trump Saudi Arabia's bitch before she decided to become Donald Trump's bitch, who literally was a commander of a PSYOPs battalion in the Army. I thought this is something that the conspiracy-minded immediately would set them off, right? PSYOPs, right? Isn't that your big thing? PSYOPs, they're running PSYOPs. She literally ran a PSYOPs battalion, and you can find anything that she said, you can find a clip of her saying the opposite. That doesn't seem like a PSYOP to you? These are people that Robert Kennedy Jr., who we know kept a fucking notebook of sexual acts with all the women that he had sexual relationships with, who is virulently pro-Israel. Nothing going on there? You thought none of these people were on the Epstein list? Like, these are people you really thought were going to go in and clean shit up and kick ass and take names.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that's true. He did keep a list. Kennedy kept his own list. If they wanted to save some face, they could have just done that. They could have been just like Pam Bondi could have just said, we didn't find the client list, but we did find in the Epstein evidence file a signed copy of RFK's sex diary, which was apparently gifted to him in 2007. So there you go. That's something. Those are the files. That's what we have.
This crew of liars, grifters, and crackpots. No, I could see why so many people ran around thumping their chests about how a new sheriff was coming to town and was going to expose all these people. I could see why you thought this was a plausible crew to go in and expose the Epstein pedo ring. Listen, man, as the great man said, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yep.
Nobody is coming to save you. There is no part of the oligarchy that is so separated from the overall oligarchy that they're going to do their class brothers and sisters dirty like that. Right. They are not going to expose their own people that way for you.
Please clap.